From Unity of Houston, Texas, this is the Awakened Life with Reverend Howard Caesar. Unity is a non-denominational spiritual community providing a positive, practical, and progressive approach to Christianity. Let's join the service in progress now with Reverend Howard Caesar.
So there was a man who was walking along the street, and he went up to a hot dog vendor in the city there, and it was hot dogs $1.50, and so he went up, and he was kind of cute. He felt kind of mystical, and he gave the guy $5 and said, "Make me one with everything." And so the guy fixed his hot dog and gave him the hot dog, and the man waited, and he said, "You know, I gave you $5. It's a $1.50 hot dog." And the vendor said, "Change must come from within." So today I'd like to make you all one with everything, but not a hot dog, okay? One of the first things that we have to learn, really, and realize is that change must come from within, right? Everything moves from center to circumference. We have to realize and engage with the one presence and one power and come into harmony with all the universal laws that we come to learn. And so it's not God punishing us, it's us being punished by our being out of harmony with certain laws. Sometimes we're simply ignorant and unaware, but that's part of our growth. And so I believe all of us hunger and thirst after a oneness. We long to have oneness in the world. We look at things that are happening in the world where there's division and separation and conflict, and we long for people who are in pain and suffering to experience what we know is the true potential, what really exists, what can be created, what is possible. We know that on some level. And so we also, as a soul, individually in our own lives, have the impetus of the surge of the Spirit within us to be living from oneness. And when we're out of oneness in some regard and into internal conflict, we know we are not really being ourselves, and we want to get back in sync. And so oneness is a key to our own growth, our own spiritual evolution, our evolvement as a soul, the quality of our life, the quality of our relationships, the quality of prosperity and health and well-being and peace of mind, all of these things. Inside of oneness is the solution to every problem. Inside of oneness with the one are all the qualities and attributes of the divine. So it's out of stepping inside of oneness that you begin to be the qualities and attributes of the divine themselves. God is love, God is peace, God is joy, but those are only words. They're only a concept until we actually make them a part of our feeling nature. You know, until we, as the song says, you know, the power of one starts in the heart, and then it moves through the soul. It's an energy, it's a vibration, it's a frequency that you begin to resonate with, because that's really who you are and what the Spirit in you longs to be and express as. My title today is the same title as my new book, 1 + 1 is 1, and making oneness a way of life. Well, a few days ago, I was on the phone with my 8-year-old grandson, Brady, and he knew I was writing a book, and he didn't know the title of it, but he calls me Papa. He said, "Papa, are you done with the book?" I said, yes, Brady, I'm done with the book. He said, "Papa, what's the name of the book?" And I said, "Well, Brady, it's 1 + 1 is 1. There was this long pause. He's 8 years old. He says, "Papa, 1 × 1 is 1. 1 divided by 1 is 1, but 1 + 1 is 2. So I had to explain that this was something else, that everyone and everything is part of God, and that's the theme of it. So in regular math, in earth math, in the principle of addition, if you will, 1 + 1 is 2. 1 plus any number of you is a greater sum than 1. That's true. That's true. However, the principle of, spiritual principle, of cosmic math, if you will, the universal principle, is that essentially 1 plus any other thing of God's creation, whatever it is you add up, actually, it's all 1. 5,000, not 5,000, but 500 years before Jesus Christ, 500 years before Jesus Christ, there was a Greek philosopher who said something that has been quoted since, and others have actually been given credit, but it was this person named Empedocles. And back then, he said something that has always stayed with me, and it is this. He said, God is a circle whose center is everywhere and whose circumference is nowhere. God is a circle whose center is everywhere and whose circumference is nowhere. That is profound. That was centuries ago that it was said. You don't just come up with that without going deep within the framework of your experience as a soul. The very center of God, the point of the allness and the fullness of God is everywhere. The fullness of every point, anywhere you go, it is the center. The center of the all is felt in any moment, in any place throughout the universe. And that the borders of God, there are none. It is nowhere. Okay, the circumference is non-existent. You can't define where it ends. Very expansive thought. And it's saying that nothing is outside the circle of God. It's all God. It's all God. Now, Jesus said this, the Father and I are one. The Father and I are one. When you say that and affirm that, it actually carries a vibration itself if you are really with the statement. The Father and I are one. Say that. The Father and I are one. You need to say that often because it carries a vibration. It really does. That's why he said it. Not only that it was a truth, but it was something that shifted him. It reminded him. It took him to a new place. It took him into truth. Inside of that statement, the Father and I are one, is the principle, 1 + 1 is 1. The Father and I are one. 1 + 1 is 1. The Father and anything you label is one. You understand? Because it's all inside the circle of the all that is. And so when Jesus said, where two or more are gathered together in my name, there am I in the midst of them. Any two or more, if you are there in my name meaning in my nature, in my consciousness, the consciousness of love and oneness, I am there. We're all there. We're all one. It's all one when you are at the place of that nature, that name of love and oneness. So it starts in the heart, and then it flows through the soul, and then it transforms the moment, transforms your world, your life. And we need to understand the importance that Jesus placed on love and oneness. They're one and the same, really, but you can't have love without becoming, not true love, without having a oneness with God. Oneness with God is love, and from that, you experience love, you experience joy, you experience peace, but it all comes, its purest frequencies are out of oneness. And so, when Jesus prayed the prayer, this is found in the Gospel of John, chapter 17. Jesus prayed this prayer. It's very powerful because it was for you and me and all people of all time. He said to God, the glory that you have given me, I have given them, so that they may be one, as we are one, I and them, and you and me, that they may become completely one. That's what we're here for. His prayer for us is that we become completely one. What does completely one means? It means completely one with all that is. There's no sense of separation with anyone or anything. You know that we're all connected. And so, and where he says, the glory that you have given me, I have given them. What's the glory? The glory is not something that sets us apart in terms of an achievement that separates one from another. The glory that he's talking about is that feeling, the glory of feeling connected to your source, the source that has given you life. There's a wonderful feeling that comes through you as a soul when you are feeling love and that life. There's no greater feeling. And we've only probably had short little brief windows where we've felt it that deep and that connected. But that's where home lives. That's who we are, you know. And it's the feeling of oneness, the feeling of connectedness, and it's causeless love and causeless joy at its greatest, purest sense, which means is somebody doesn't have to do something. Somebody doesn't have to be kind to me. There isn't any cause for me to feel love. I just am. You see, it's causeless love. And to get to that place that nothing can be given, nothing can be taken away, I'm just in the energies of love. Nothing can be given to me, nothing can be taken away. I'm just in the energies of joy. That is a state of consciousness that exists, okay? That's what masters and enlightened beings have told us exists. But we are very attached to what's happening around us. And so that's part of what we're growing through. In the Gospel of Thomas, which was one of the canonical books that didn't make it into the Bible, there were a number of them, and this was found as part of the Nag Hammadi Library set of books, and this was found in 1945. And the Gospel of Thomas, there's one passage where Jesus makes a statement that has been pulled out of that Gospel because it's so powerful, and it's this, Jesus' statement. When you make the two one, and when you make the inside like the outside, and the outside like the inside, and the above like the below, and when you make the male and the female one in the same, then you will have entered the kingdom. Wow, did you get that? You all want me to say it again, don't you? When you make the two one, and when you make the inside like the outside, and the outside like the inside, and the above like the below, and when you make the male and female one and the same, then you will enter the kingdom. It's talking about, again, a profound sense of oneness. So separation is man's challenge. It's the big obstacle. It's where conflict and suffering arise internally within us individually or externally in the world or in our own individual world. But our natural state is always that of being in oneness. But out of that natural state of oneness, we at some point in this life morph into a separate self. And for the first 2 or 3 years of our life as a child, we don't really form an identity that is separate, that is. We're just experiencing. We really don't have an identity. We're putting everything in our mouth. We're touching and feeling everything. We're exploring. There's no sense of separation, really. And then we form an identity. We begin to see that there are differences to distinguish. There becomes a me and a not me that is established. We differentiate. We begin to go more and more to me, 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 mine, 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 I, and create this separate self. It is the mind that creates division and dividedness in which a separate self gets created. And it begins to take over and cover the self that is the true you, okay? The true self. And so this separate self becomes self-conscious. It becomes full of self-doubt. It seeks self-esteem. It becomes possessive, insecure, self-centered, even at times selfish. And separation is then a kind of perception that we become conditioned into. But we can also grow out of. What we condition ourselves into, we can release and let go. Truth is, we're all one. That will always be the truth. And we are one with the all that is. And as we allow a separate self kind of to take over more and more, we begin to wall ourselves off from people, from life, as to a closeness, a connectedness that is meant to be. We lose touch with our oneness. We lose touch with our true being, our spiritual self, our true self. We lose touch with where love as its purest, deepest sense can be felt, where joy as its deepest sense can be felt, where peace, all of these things. Now, an example of that is if you look at your hand or my hand, it's clean, it's unencumbered, it's free, it can feel, it can pick things up, it can touch. That's the hand, okay? And so if your hand is right now representing your true self, all right, but what happens is that over time, we cover it up. This could be a boxing glove. This could be a rubber glove. This could be thick or thin or big, whatever. But essentially, it inhibits my ability now to feel things, to grasp things, to feel, to touch. This is the separate self. The real self's still here, okay? Always has been. But this is what we have created with our minds in separation from who we are. It's our past. It's all the happenings and things that have occurred. It's the different voices we've heard and voices of authority and things we've taken on. It's the places where we've been wounded, hurt, where fear has set in, where we have judgments, false perceptions, okay? And the separate self is a creation of the mind, not of the heart, because the heart is where wisdom lives, and the heart shows the way. The mind cannot feel. Your mind alone cannot feel or have an experience. Your being is what has the experience. It's passed from the mind, okay? And so the mind and the heart does work in conjunction. And so when we are able to remove the glove, we can now feel connected again. We can now feel and be back in touch. We're back being ourselves again. It feels so good. But it's just representing, symbolize the idea that now I can feel the feelings of joy again, and peace and love. I'm back to who I really am. And there are tools for taking off the gloves, you know. There's processes of releasing and letting go and clearing us. There's process of learning to live in the moment and be in the moment, re-identifying with the highest that is in you and seeking to be in that. It's opening the portals of the soul to let spirit come in to speak to you in new dimensions and a new depth. Your life moves from it being about fear and a life or death kind of thing and survival. It moves to being about life and depth. So that more important than just surviving and staying alive and all of that and all your fears. Now, what's most important is the depth of your life and where you're going with it in that regard. So meditation is very important. It's creating each day times of being quiet, connecting with that one presence and one power. It's one of the things that I do too, that I learned actually in India, was they have what they call the Sri Murti. And so whoever you hold is high being that you're following, whether it's Buddha or Krishna or Jesus. You have a picture or several pictures if you want on your altar, and you look into the picture, into the face, and you look into it for a few minutes before you meditate. And there's a connection, there's a shift that happens. And you're actually energetically taken into some of the frequencies of the vibrations of that enlightened being. And then from there you go and sit down and meditate. But I've been doing that every day before I meditate. I look into the eyes of Jesus, into the face, and I swear sometimes his eyes are moving and sometimes he smiles. And I don't think it's my imagination. It's happened too many times. But there is a connection that we may not understand that can be made simply through a picture. That's not new to anybody, really. And it's powerful if you begin to affirm, the Father and I are one, as we did shortly ago. I affirm that before my every meditation. I like to affirm it before I pray, after I pray. When I roll over at night, I have conditioned myself now, immediately I go into the mantra, the Father and I are one, the Father and I are one, until I go to sleep again. That's just my mantra while I'm conscious before going off into unconscious sleep. And so it's opening the portals of your soul in a way in which you resonate with oneness and move toward the bliss of feeling that. There are moments that we can all point to in our life where we have felt that connection. You know, I share some of those in my book, and one is just a time when I was in high school, and I was like a sophomore, and I went for a walk, and we lived with a woods that went on for miles behind our house, and then there were fields as well, farmers' fields, and so I was walking along the edge of the woods, and it was a brisk autumn day, and half the leaves were off the trees, and I went up to a hill and stood under a great big maple or oak, whatever it was, I can't remember, one of the two, and anyway, being up high, I was able to look over the tops of the trees and see the trees swaying, and the brisk wind was hitting me in the face, and leaves were fluttering around me, and the sun was setting in a beautiful glaze of crimson. And I just stood there, and I just lost myself. It was like I almost like left my body. I just felt so connected. Something came over me, and I just began to emote. The feeling, the glory of that oneness in that moment, all I felt was oneness. I was not troubled about anything. I just was in the moment. And I've carried that with me because we can have those. And yes, sometimes they're brief windows, but we've all had them one time or another. There was a lady that sent me an email because I had showed a Facebook post of my collection of eagles in my office. And she sent me a message about an experience she had with an eagle. She was in Georgia visiting friends, and they were on a drive, and they weren't familiar, and they made a wrong turn, and they were out in the country. And they found along a fence line, there was barbed wire on the fence, and there was a big, beautiful eagle that had wound itself up in the barbed wire, and it was stuck and couldn't get out. So they stopped, and her son-in-law had a toolbox actually in the car that was a wire cutter. So she tells how she held her with one hand, the head of this eagle up, and the talons and claws down. And she said she didn't know she got the strength, but she did while he cut some of the wire, and then it took off. And it went, and it just flew, screaming and off high, and seemed to go almost out of sight, then made a turn and came back fast, and just came and swooped down right at them and made a pass by them, and then flew away again. And she swears that was the eagle coming back and saying, thank you. And that's a moment she's never forgotten. You know how long ago that was? 25 years. She told me the year it happened, when it happened, where it happened, how it happened. We have moments that come to us. There's a man that I know that had a place where he was to retire to with his wife in the north woods of Wisconsin. He fell off a ladder, hurt himself, and was kind of incapacitated for a time. And so during that time, what he would do, not being too mobile, he would create on the ground a 12 inch by 12 inch by 12 inch square. And he would look into that square and just meditate into that square and see all the different forms of life that he could gaze into and see. And there would be grass, there would be dirt, there would be weeds, there would be flowers, there would be insects moving on through, all of that. And what he did with that was it made him happy, because it put somehow him in the framework that, look all that's going on in 1 square foot of God's creation, and how much the expanse is beyond that. That's where he was coming from. Some of us, what moves us is nature. Some of us, it's the arts. Some of us, it's music. Some of it's physical activity. Some really get a high in the jogging, meditation, whatever. But all good flows from God. All good flows from God. And Jesus wanted to make sure everyone understood that. There was a man that came to him and asked him a question, and he addressed Jesus as good master. Good master, and then asked the question. And Jesus stopped him and said, wait a minute, before he answered the question. He said, why do you call me good? There is none good but one, and that is God. He wanted this guy to get that. Any good that you see in me, that's God. You're seeing God. So again, he's back to saying, anything that's good that you see, don't make me the good, the source of it. It's God. And you need to see God as the good in everyone and everything. So he stopped right there, all action, and went and made that point. And so whether, at the core of life, if we can take a sense of looking for the good in every square foot of life, wow, that's great. And if we can consistently love ourselves enough that we are able to have taken the glove off of how we view ourselves, we're going to be taking the glove off and see the core, at least see beyond the glove that other people may be, covering themselves with a separate self. We're going to see the core. We're going to see and know that's who they are. Something is happening in this world, and I believe that people cannot ignore this movement of oneness that's taking place. Jimmy Carter, if you saw, had a link that he said, losing my religion for equality. After 6 decades, 60 years following one denomination, and this was very painful for him. They have arrived at a convention. They had determined that because Eve was second to Adam in being born, that she was responsible for original sin and was therefore to be subservient to their husbands and therefore prohibited from serving as deacons and pastors and chaplains in the military service. And he was at a place in his evolution that's it. I can't take that inequality. He could not see his wife or any other woman being less than whole and complete, okay? And so what I'm saying is there is a movement of oneness that will not back away, and that people are having to step into that oneness and things. And it's not that he's against anyone, it's what he's for and what he knows himself to be. There's Albert Einstein. He wrote a letter to his daughter, and he wrote many letters actually, but this is one, and I share just a couple of excerpts from it. He said, there is an extremely powerful force that so far science has not found a formal explanation to. It is a force that includes and governs all others and is even behind any phenomenon operating in the universe and has not yet been identified by us. The universal force is love. He said, to give visibility to love, I made a simple substitution in my famous equation. If instead of E equals mc squared, we accept that the energy to heal the world can be obtained through love multiplied by the speed of light squared, we arrive at the conclusion that love is the most powerful force there is because it has no limits. Each individual, he said, and he's writing this to his daughter, each individual carries within them a small but powerful generator of love whose energy is waiting to be released. When we learn to give and receive the universal energy, dear Lucille, that's his daughter's name, we have affirmed that love conquers all, is able to transcend everything and anything, because love is the quintessence of life. That's our spiritual destiny. That's who we are. That's who we have come to live, to uncover, to take the gloves off, not this way, but this way, and to be really who we are. All progress that we make to evolve and unfold and grow begins with the intention to awaken to the energies of oneness. It begins with taking a stand to listen to the voice within, to be willing to clear, to add more of those holy moments where you feel the glory of the divine moving through you at a deep level of connection, so that they go deep into your soul and resonate. So there is one source, there is one heart, there is one love, there's one voice, there's one sound, there's one song being sung in the universe. Be one. God bless you all.
Thank you for joining us for today's message. We invite you to be with us again next Sunday. Unity is inclusive, welcoming people of all walks of life in dignity and love. We believe that love, strength, and goodness dwells within you. May we all live in unity with God, humanity, and all of God's creation. And remember, as Reverend Caesar says, life is meant to be good.
Hi, I'm Howard Caesar, and I'm here to invite you to read my new book, 1 + 1 is 1. I believe the world is aching for oneness, and so is every person at a soul level. Oneness is an experience of the heart that transcends the mind. More than an intellectual concept, it's a feeling that expands our relationship with the divine and all its creation. It puts us in touch with life in all its forms in a deeper, more connected way. In the book, I explain what I mean by 1 + 1 is 1, for it's a tremendously important universal spiritual principle that we're all called to live. My intention with this book is to remind and inspire you, the reader, to realize that the soul's deepest longing is oneness, and that through its pages, to awaken, restore, and deepen your sense of oneness with the all that is. I hope you're led to pick up a copy and benefit from its contents.
When you visit Unity of Houston, you'll find a spiritual community, a church where you can connect and learn and grow with a progressive approach to Christianity. At Unity, we welcome you no matter what your beliefs. You'll find a teaching, loving, inspiring experience as we help each other be all we're created to be. Check us out. We'd love to have you. Find us online at unityhouston.org, and remember, life is meant to be good.